Live on WFLA now, this is Hey JB. Here's JB Biunno.
A year filled with legal drama that captivated millions. From an A-list celebrity clash to shocking decisions causing uproar around the world. Our countdown of the top 5 court cases of 2022 starts now on WFLA Now. Hello there to you folks. Good afternoon. JB here with you live in the Stream Center for a year-end special stream. And I am not alone here in the Stream Center. Joining us in the Stream Center, Peter Tragos, a personal injury attorney in the Clearwater area. But of course, you know him online as the lawyer you know. Of course, doing his show daily. Peter, you are somebody that people have gone to and flocked to for courtroom analysis. Welcome to the Stream Center.
I'm pumped to be here, and I cannot believe we do it daily, but somehow we do. It seems wild. I never thought we'd be doing it daily, but somehow
sometimes
we are.
Multiple times.
Sometimes
daily.
We try to hit it. I mean, we're not a news station, so we don't break news, but I try to get on it as quick as possible because people flood my inbox with questions on Instagram, on Twitter. At Tragos Law is our handle if you want to send any questions in there ever. So we try to jump on and answer as many questions as we can with these videos. And when I have time, I squeeze it into the schedule. People are always sometimes frustrated with how short the videos are. They want to be a little bit longer, but I try to do what I can to get the info out there.
Well, we have about half an hour to 45 minutes to break down this list. We are going to, of course, not take that much longer to get through the list, but we're going to go through this list. Was assembled by Peter. It is his top 5 court cases of 2022, and there were so many options. And speaking of the options, before we reveal the entirety of the list, we want to get your input. You can vote now by clicking on the link in the description on this video. It will take you over to our Next Star sister station website or WFLA.com, where you can vote in our one-click poll for your top court case of 2022. I see the results coming in. It is populating and favored towards one particular case. Does that align with Peter's lists? Let's get things started. So Peter, again, we're going to remind our audience, you built this list exactly how?
So I built it off of significance. Did people care about it? Were people watching? Did people learn something new that maybe they didn't know before? And did it change the way we look at things or change the way we're going to do things in the future as a country, as a society? That's kind of how I looked at it. Mostly. And to make this list, and you guys have a ton of cases on there to vote for, I had to cross out ones that happened late 2021 or a lot of them that happened in 2021 because we had huge trials in 2021 that I think were significant and impactful, like the Derek Chauvin trial, the Ahmaud Arbery trial, Kyle Rittenhouse's case, Theranos with Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny Balwani, R. Kelly, Ghislaine Maxwell, tons of cases in 2021 that didn't make the list just because I kind of drew a line in mine to try to limit the ones we picked from. But there were some huge cases in 2021, and eventually we'll get to what's to come in 2023.
And if you're wondering, yes, we're going to preview 2023 coming up here in a little bit. And if you're wondering, is Roe v. Wade number 1 on this list? I think we ranked that. That's more categorized as a SCOTUS decision, a Supreme Court decision, rather than a court case. So that's kind of how we're looking at this list. And let's actually get it underway by revealing Peter's number 5, and of course, we're talking about the George Floyd case. You mentioned Derek Chauvin's name. That was a 2021 case primarily, but the other 3 officers involved in the murder of George Floyd, that of course extended into 2022. Why is this number 5 on your list, Peter?
To me, this was even more interesting than Derek Chauvin's case and Derek Chauvin's trial, because legally speaking, and the ramifications and what we learned and what we saw coming from this case were much more groundbreaking than what came from Derek Chauvin, who there's actually video of the actions that he did and what he was convicted of in the murder of George Floyd. These officers were convicted of violating civil rights, and they basically changed the way we look at officer behavior in the streets and whether or not they have to step in when a supervising officer either tells them to do something outright or they're following the lead of the supervising officer. When do they have to step in and say something? When do they have to step in and do something? When do they have to render aid? How are we going to train law enforcement officers? All of those questions came up in this trial, and because they were convicted at the federal level, there were also a lot of questions about why are there federal charges and state charges in these cases, and it actually happens a lot. My dad, like I said, was a former federal and state prosecutor. He did a full video on explaining the differences and why it's there. But at the end of the day, a lot of time it has to do with pressure and making sure that you get the bad guys based on what the charges are. And when there are state and federal charges, a lot of times if they get convicted in one, they will plead to the other, which is exactly what happened in this case. Convicted on the federal trial, and they all pled on the state cases. Now, I also think that we learned about good behavior and time on the job and experience and some of the mitigating factors we learned about in this case, because they were convicted of multiple crimes, but they all got 2 to 3 year sentences, which some people thought was not enough, but it gave the audience a peek into what it's like when you have somebody that's convicted of a crime, but maybe does have a lifetime of service, community service, some of them had, and some good deeds as opposed to lifetime criminals, and why they get different sentences. So I thought there was a lot to be learned from this case. I think it changed the way we looked at a certain aspect, and a lot of people were interested in it. So it hit the 3 criteria I had for the list, and it comes in at number 5.
Yeah, so we put it here on our list as number 5, even though we pooled kind of all 3 of them together. You'll find this interesting. In our poll, of course, you can continue to vote on WFLA.com. In our poll, this finished at 5th.
Wow.
So so far, so good.
That's interesting.
As far as you being aligned with how our audience feels. It's actually tied for 5th with one other case. We'll go over, of course, your list, the viewer list at the end of this stream, really at the end of our countdown, because I really want to hear from our audience as to what you felt was the number 1 court case of 2022. Let's move on with our list. And again, we're going to go 5 all the way down to number 1. And really, of course, number 1 is really the big reveal here. But let's go down to number 4. This one is interesting because this trial didn't actually occur this year. This is more, we're kind of looking at this from a pre-trial perspective. But of course, we're talking about the looming legal showdown between the Petito family, the Schmidt family, and the Laundries. The Laundrie family connected to, of course, the death of Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. Why is this number 4 on your list, Peter?
So to me, it's interesting when we don't have a trial to go through. We don't necessarily learn all the facts and everything we know that's admissible and reliable that comes out actually in court. So it's a little bit different to look at this case, but this was impactful in a different way. The nation kind of got together and trying to solve this mystery and trying to figure out what happened, trying to find Brian Laundrie when he was on the run. And I think it changed the way that we look at things, and we're seeing it in the Idaho University murder cases. I think they're following some of the same beats as the Gabby Petito situation. Even though those victims aren't missing, there is a fugitive on the run, and people are doing what they can to try to help, and social media is playing a big part. And now the victim's parents have hired a lawyer to try to put pressure on the investigation. Will there be a lawsuit if there's some kind of negligent investigation like we've seen with Petito's parents suing the Moab Police Department? With issues with how they investigated that domestic violence that could have maybe prevented this. So it's interesting to see the ripple effect of this case. And I also think that another interesting legal aspect a lot of people had questions from and learned from was there was a partial resolution, right? With Brian Laundrie's estate, $3 million. We heard about that. What does that mean? Are they going to get that money? Why are they continuing to sue the Laundrie parents? And I think the legal aspects and legal questions about the lawsuit they filed against the Laundrie parents, specifically in Florida, is very interesting. And that judge has actually referenced another case on this list that I won't give away yet, but these cases are intermingled and are going to affect the future cases. And this one is actually one to watch because it could make the list again next year, depending on what happens. Do we see a trial? Do we see more evidence? Do we see the case get thrown out because of legal issues in Florida?
Yeah, and this is the one that I, of course, have the most knowledge of because it's right here in our backyard. It's right here in Tampa Bay, Florida. And there's been some developments, but really this is looming as a showdown for this summer. August of 2023 is when it is scheduled. We hope, of course, that we get a trial sooner rather than later. The more recent developments on this that I can share with people is the Petito and Schmidt family have filed an amended complaint, a motion to add Laundrie family attorney Steve Bertolino. I want to get your take on this, sure, Peter, in a second. And then the other thing, too, as well, that I tweeted out yesterday is that Judge Carroll might not be the judge when this actually goes to jury trial later this year. He might get rotated out to a different court division in Sarasota County Court. But let's focus on the fact that now that we have some of the pretrial stuff, those obstacles for Gabby Petito's family, hurdled over. Now they're trying to add Stephen Bertolino to the list. What do you make of that move? And do you think that the Laundrie family attorney will be added as a defendant to this lawsuit ahead of trial this year?
So Hunter Carroll, the judge, being rotated out could make a big difference because he's not afraid to make decisions. He's not afraid to read through and see what he thinks the law is and what it says. He's not just going to follow suit and not let an unusual case go forward, as we've already seen. So that could have an impact on the case. It really could. Maybe some other judges wouldn't make as big of a difference. There's some great judges down there in Sarasota, though, so we'll see. As far as Bertolino getting added to the complaint, I thought it was an interesting move. And I think at the end of the day, again, if we look at other cases as well, clients are being held accountable for what their lawyers say publicly. And I think it's an interesting kind of tie-in. And I think that the way we're going, it's kind of like two trains coming at each other, so they may as well add them to the lawsuit because we're going to figure out once and for all whether or not this is legally proper. And I think if they're allowing it to go forward against the parents, then they're going to allow it to go forward against Bertolino as well. I think if it goes away, it's going to be one fell swoop going away because it actually is his words. But how do they prove what he knows? How do they prove what he was told? How do they prove what information and what his motive was?
Isn't that protected under attorney-client privilege?
Absolutely. And what duty does he have to Gabby Petito's parents? As horrible as it all sounds and as horrible as it all is and what was happening, to be able to prove what people knew before they said a statement that to me is bland. It's kind of a bland statement overall that we're hooking this entire case to. It's not a statement of this is what happened, these are the facts, everybody should know that. It's not a statement like that. It's we're real sorry, we hope they're reunited. You know, that's basically what the statement is. And it's horrible if you know the truth to say that. I just don't know how far legally this is going to go. And I think it could really change the way we look at things, which is why it's really significant to me.
Yeah, I'm, of course, following this story as much as possible for people. And there's 3 dates that are coming up to pay attention to. January 24th is when Judge Carroll will hear the motion on whether Bertolino is added as a defendant to the lawsuit. There's also depositions that are scheduled for January. It might not happen in January. I have more about that on Twitter, on my WFLA JB Twitter account. But that will be the first time, as far as tense depositions go, Peter, that will be the first time Gabby Petito's parents and Brian Laundrie's parents will be in the same room at the same time and have to basically come face to face. So when those depositions happen, that's going to be significant. And then August of 2023 is when the trial is scheduled to get underway. We'll keep you, of course, monitored to all the progress that goes on with those developments right here in Tampa Bay, Florida on WFLA.com. Okay, the list so far, of course, talking about the officers in the George Floyd case, Petito and Schmidt versus Laundrie. Are we ready for the top 3? Ready for number 3? Okay, let's move on to the list to Peter's Lawyer You Know's top 5 court cases of 2022, number 3 on his list. This was one that was perhaps, you could make the argument that of the 5 on this list, this is the one that is the most controversial, and that, of course, being the sentencing trial for the Parkland school shooter, who I'm not going to mention by name on this stream. By now, we have heard his name enough. He doesn't deserve it. So his death penalty trial that took place this year, of course, it spanned many, many months, and it culminated with this massive decision. It needed unanimous consent among the jury. It was not unanimous. One person reportedly did not agree with handing out the death penalty. Why is this your number 3 court case of the year, Peter?
I'll do my best not to mention his name, but I will say it. Yeah, I've said it on my video, so sometimes it's hard when I start talking to mention it. But
understood.
Only in a negative tense, right? If it does come out. So this one was super interesting to me because it highlighted Florida's death penalty process. Because each state that still has the death penalty, there's a little bit of a different process. And you mentioned it has to be unanimous. One started out against. It seemed like it may have moved or grown to 3, but at the end of the day, they did not get unanimity on the death penalty. We heard from the jurors. We heard from the victim's parents. We heard a lot post-verdict in this case that asked the question to Florida and other states, if not this case, then what case is appropriate for the death penalty? And I think it's a fair question. If we're going to have it, whether you're for the death penalty or against it, what kind of case is necessary? And are these jurors in the jury selection process? If you're going to say, if you're one of the people that does not believe in the death penalty, does not agree with the death penalty, that's perfectly fine. But you are disqualified from being a juror on a death penalty phase trial like the Parkland shooter case. So was that what the juror was going into it? Do we have an issue with the jury? It doesn't seem like it at this point. But this case also added additional intrigue when we got to the judge and the defense attorneys kind of going at it a little bit. And people had some comments about that. And the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers actually wrote a letter to the chief judge. And then you had the judge hugging the prosecutors at the end of the case. And all of this is being live streamed for people to watch and seeing it for the first time. So they have questions about the impartiality of this judge. And we're learning and understanding how judges are humans too. They have emotions too, and how they act. Does it affect the case? Does it not? And I think a lot of these trials, and we're going to get to some even more in the future in our list here, that the judge is a highlight and somebody that people are really paying attention to as we live stream these trials. Not just the parties, not just the witnesses, and not even just the lawyers.
I have started a poll, and I'm going to ask you this question, Peter, and you can answer or you can choose not to. It's totally up to you, because the big uproar after the decision was reached, after the jury read the verdict, and of course the verdict in and of itself was very, very long and a process in and of itself. People were questioning whether or not the process works. Florida's system for the death penalty, 12 jurors, correct? It was 12 jurors, if I remember correctly, and 11 concluded that the death penalty was the appropriate sentence, one saying that it was not. And there was a lot of talk as to whether, in the legal community and just with people that aren't attorneys or lawyers, as to whether or not the system works, whether or not one person not agreeing with the other 11 on that jury is proof that the system works because it has to be unanimous, or if it's one person dictating really the outcome and the fate of a person when the other 11 see it one way, when it's not even a majority or super majority, it's almost unanimous. So we've launched a YouTube Live poll. This is only on YouTube Live, in our YouTube comment section, asking whether or not you think, with what happened with the Parkland school shooter sentencing and the death penalty trial for the Parkland school shooter, whether or not you think it's proof that the system worked as it should, or it doesn't work and that this was a litmus test for that system. What's your take on it, Peter?
So my take is pretty simply, if you're going to have it, this is the way you have to do it. And unanimity is not only in death penalty phase cases. Anytime you have a criminal trial, you've got to have a unanimous verdict on the guilty verdict. And the reason for that is we need to be sure.
It's how we get hung juries.
Right. And it happens. It happens all the time. And it's happened to us before. And it's very difficult when you wait for days for a verdict and they keep coming back saying they can't get it, and the judge charges them to go try to figure it out. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But at the end of the day, death is different, number one. That's the saying. Death is different in the legal community. So we have to make sure that we are sure about it. And then the saying that you'd rather, 100 guilty men go free than one innocent man get convicted and put in prison or be put to death. And as hard as that is to hear, and especially for the victims in the case, we have to make sure. That's why it's beyond a reasonable doubt is the burden. And that's why we have to be unanimous on guilty verdicts and on the death penalty verdict. What's different about this is, right, there's no hung jury. It's just no death penalty.
Yeah,
they don't get to do it again.
Yep.
Exactly, which that's the difference from the hung jury. We get to do the trial again. It's a mistrial. The state gets another shot at trying to convict the defendant for the crimes they believe that they've committed. In this case, they don't. It just comes back as life.
And this is it. There is no appeal process. It was decided in this trial, and that is it. It's final.
Outside something very unexpected or something that we don't know, like jury fraud or something like that, a plant on the juror that, flipped everything and they figure out Nicholas Cruz's family paid them to get outside of some unforeseen circumstance like that. Yes, it is most likely he's going to end up with life in prison.
We are going to put some comments on screen using either hashtag HeyJB or hashtag lawyer. If you use one of those hashtags with your comment, we can animate it on screen. And we're going to ask you again, the question, do you think that the process was proved in this case? Does the process work, or does the process not work as far as Florida's death penalty system? I'm going to we'll bring up Deborah's comment on screen saying, hashtags for both, Parkland was horrible from beginning to end. Mo says, hashtag KJB, when dealing with ending a life, it should only take one voice to save them. Did he deserve it? That's a very different story. So that's a very insightful comment from Mo. And then I believe that we had Nick Rose. Hashtag KJB. I think he needs the death penalty for that crime. And Nick was not alone. A lot of people felt the same way, that if somebody can go into a school and massacre students with no regard for human life, does not get the death penalty, killing kids doesn't get the death penalty, then what what should get the death penalty?
That's the interesting question to me. I mean, the system to me is not perfect. Are we going to agree with every result? No. There are multiple results people probably didn't agree with just in the 10 trials we've talked about so far, including the 2021 trials. That doesn't mean the system doesn't work. And Nick's not alone. A lot of people on the jury agreed with him, right? I mean, so it's really a difficult situation, and Mo's awesome. And a lot of the people that have commented that we've seen questions on, that's what makes YouTube so awesome, is this interactivity that we can get these questions and comments and talk through it with people in a respectful way so we can all learn together and understand that something that's not perfect doesn't mean that it doesn't work. And I think this situation highlights what's the death penalty for then. And maybe it's a discussion that Florida needs to maybe edit some of the criteria around.
Our poll, our YouTube poll, the results are live. 70% right now says it's proof that the system doesn't work. 30% saying it's proof that the system does, in fact, work. All right, let's take just a very, very brief timeout to remind you that we are paying attention to your top court case of 2022. We want to hear from you. And so if you click on the link in the description on this video, you can cast your vote for the top court case of 2022. A couple of big ones still to come on Peter's list. And we're, of course, going to be paying attention to the live results that are coming in on WFLA.com or on our Nexstar station website app, whatever. You might be finding us in a lot of different places. We're across the country right now on a lot of different Facebook pages. And we want to let you know, if you click on the link, you should see the poll. It's a one-click poll. You don't have to sign up or anything or give your email. You hate that when you have to like sign up and give your address and phone number, 5 clicks. And then it's like, oh, you forgot to fill out this field. I hate that.
It's the worst.
Trust me, you don't have to go through any of that. You just click on the link, one-click poll, you vote, you come right back to our stream and join us as we continue the countdown of the list. And let me just quickly bring up some of those results because Peter is pretty close right now. The Parkland school shooter finished at 4 on our voter list, and Gabby Petito, Brian Laundrie, that court case finished at number 3. So kind of flip-flop there. Ready to reveal number 2?
Absolutely.
All right, on to number 2 on Peter's list, and that is the Darrell Brooks trial. And for those unfamiliar with the Darrell Brooks trial, well, there's a lot of moments in that one that I'm sure could stick out in your brain. But this is the Christmas parade attack. Darrell Brooks, of course, convicted of driving his vehicle into a Christmas parade, killing people, again, with what appeared to be just zero regard for human life, all these opportunities to stop, and he didn't. Peter, why is this number 2 on your list? This one was, I'm just going to say it, it's not a news term or a legal term. This one was bonkers.
It was wild. It was absolutely wild. One of the most insane trials we've seen from a courtroom experience. And I think a lot of lessons to be learned and questions that were answered throughout this trial, like how a pro se defendant should act, what kind of clothes can they wear, are they chained to the table, how a sovereign citizen acts, whether or not certain arguments, even though they may sound like they're legitimate arguments like subject matter jurisdiction, are not, and how that works, and who the plaintiff is in a criminal case. And to me, we learned so much, and people that didn't understand how that process worked now understand it so much better. And they saw, is this going to work on the jury? A lot of them were asking, is this going to work? He keeps planting these seeds of doubt. Is one of the jurors, are they going to look at this and say, well, maybe there isn't subject matter jurisdiction? And the answer to that was emphatically no. They gave him everything they possibly could give him. And then this one also highlighted a judge, and a judge came out looking like a superhero. Now she may be on the Supreme Court of this state, and people understood what patience looks like, what impartiality looks like. Some people thought the judge was too partial towards Darrell Brooks. And then she handed down, the multiple life sentences. We learned about offers being made before trial, and we learned about what a pro se defendant can do to complain about their criminal defense lawyers. We're also learning about what it's like. Can they get an attorney for the appeals process? There were so many questions that people learned through this process, and it did captivate a huge audience because it was more wild than TV. I mean, you can't write this stuff. When they say that, they're talking about a trial like Darrell Brooks. Every day, there was an explosion of activity that we had to break down and react to and discuss and answer questions about.
Representing himself, outbursts left and right, bizarre behavior.
Not consenting to being called his own name.
Right. I mean, just absolutely. can't help but feel sometimes I watch this, and I watch some of your live streams. I remember watching some of this unfold and thinking to myself, 50 years from now, are people going to look back and ask, how was this allowed to happen? Look, a courtroom is a very professional place where your conduct and your behavior, you're expected to hold yourself to a standard. The standard was not anywhere near being reached here. So this trial was just absolutely a circus. Let's go to some of the comments. Let's bring in our wide shot from the Stream Center to bring in a couple of comments. Nee says, hashtags for both. Love you both. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you as well. We got a couple other comments that I wanted to bring in because it talked about your specific analysis of the case, and the comments are coming in so fast.
I hear you.
I think I lost them.
While you look for it, if you want to, what was cool about what you just said is the conduct in the courtroom, the technology we have today that's so different from some of the cases that the judge was citing. He wasn't gagged and bound and mouth taped shut or tied to the table. They just booted him to another courtroom, and because of technology, he could hear, he could see, he could do everything he wanted to in that courtroom to preserve his rights, but not obstruct the trial or stop the trial or delay, which is clearly what he was trying to do. So that's all of this stuff again, and that's why this trial was significant. We learn, we grow. This is going to be precedent to how other judges do it in the future, even more so than the cases that this judge cited. So that was cool to see happen in real time.
Dina, one of our terrific YouTube moderators. Thank you to all of our moderators for participating in today's stream. This trial highlighted an absolutely stellar judge. There was so much to learn by watching this trial. Do you agree with Dina's assessment that the judge did a good job?
Absolutely. And I think that you didn't just learn what a great judge is like, but how to be a patient person and how to not let your position make you think that you can do whatever you want or step on people's rights. I think there's a lot of lawyers, judges, law enforcement officers that can learn a lot from Judge Doro, because regardless of what she thought about Darrell Brooks, she made sure every one of his rights were preserved, that he got a fair trial. If he wanted to, scream and use the rope to hurt himself basically in front of the jury, she tried to stop it. She tried to send him away. He continued to do it, but she acted how a judge should act in this situation. And I said on multiple occasions, more patient than I could ever be if I was a judge.
Yeah, it was certainly a masterclass in how you manage a courtroom and what a courtroom should look like when you have somebody that is not behaving to the conduct that we talked about earlier. And Debbie giving a very kind comment your way, Peter, truly giving us great explanations on the Brooks trial. Again, live here, everybody in the Stream Center with the lawyer, Peter Tragos, right here in the Tampa Bay area, friend of mine, and also to great legal analyst as far as bringing his expertise to his YouTube followers, and today onto our YouTube channel. So again, Peter, it's great to have you as we get closer to revealing number one. How are we doing so far?
This is fun. I mean, it's a little bit of a different experience, because usually I'm used to hundreds of people asking different questions and firing these quick questions. So be able to dig in a little bit more.
Yeah, you get the day off from the comments section.
Yeah, it's nice. It's just one person asking the questions is nice.
All you got to do is focus on the analysis.
It is. It's cool. And I think that, being able to interact with people is what makes this so cool and what makes everybody understand the process more, because you or I can talk about what we think is important and what we think is cool or we think is impactful, but they actually tell us what's impacting them. They actually tell us what they want to hear. They tell us what they're interested in. And they create the significance of the case a lot of times. The people watching, the people that live in these jurisdictions. So many people from Waukesha were in on my streams talking about that case. So many people that are in the Sarasota area talking about the Gabby Petito case in South Florida for Parkland. And all of these cases, people from these communities come. They want to understand the process. How's it going to affect their community? Looking at the judges and the district attorneys and the lawyers in their community, it makes a big difference. And it's really cool to be a part of. And I always talk about how, specifically on my channel, you get some uplifting stuff once in a while.
Sure.
It's pretty much all bad, what we're talking about on our channel. Right. I mean, the content is usually negative, people having problems. I say people don't call me to tell me something good. They call me when there's a problem. And a lot of people have from YouTube, which is cool, when they have a problem and I can maybe help them with it. But talking about those situations with the comments and the community of people talking and asking these questions can make it enjoyable, because we're learning, we're getting better, we're growing as a society together in different communities.
Couldn't agree more. And that's why I talk on the stream quite a bit about interactive journalism and how I believe it's the future, because we can have these conversations. And with the state of our country right now, it's important to have those conversations. I'm glad that you do it from a legal perspective. I'll continue to do it from a journalist perspective, and really appreciate everybody who follows both of us, follows Peter, myself. It's really great to be able to collaborate in this way and bring you in here today.
And you can't really get the full picture with just one, right? I mean, that's why I don't. We talked about the Idaho case or the Delphi. Like, I can't really dive into those. I don't add anything to that. That's what they have people like you to figure out what's going on, to talk to people, to get information, to bring it to the people in a way that helps them move forward in what they're trying to figure out. And I think that's what makes it really cool, is that to have that explanation with the cases then allows them to go listen to a lawyer or a detective or whoever they want to hear that aspect from, and they'll have the information coming from someone like you first to build on. I think that's what makes it cool about YouTube and this kind of interaction.
Lawyers get a bad rep, but Peter's all right. We'll keep Peter around. We'll keep him in the Rolodex, so to speak. And it's awesome to have Peter Tragos, again, personal injury attorney right here in the Tampa Bay area, the lawyer joining us on stream. We are moments away from unveiling it's not my list, it's his list, the #1 top court case of 2022. And I'm going to give everybody the opportunity here. Let's light up the comment section, Facebook and YouTube, to guess.
You're never going to guess. Nobody's ever going to guess. They'll never guess.
They're never going to guess.
Yeah.
What number? Are we going to have a shocker for #1, or is it going to be the court case that everybody thinks it's going to be? Everyone, let's just light it up. Let's hear it. Let's see it. I want to get some guesses going on here in our comment section. And as a reminder, yes, you still have a chance to vote by clicking on the link in the description on this video or in the pinned comment. It will take you over to WFLA.com, where you can vote for your top court case of 2022. We're going to shout out some commenters as to their guests. But look, as far as some of the ones that missed the list, the Curtis Reeves trial was absolutely huge. Massive. That is the movie theater shooting. That is a story that developed over years here in Tampa Bay, culminating with the decision of Curtis Reeves being really, in essence, exonerated for that. We actually had Dino and Rick on the channel, the defense lawyers in that case, on the channel to explain what that was like, and dealing with a negative media narrative that was just ended up being wrong, and the jury found what they felt to be actually happened. So I mean, it's a wild, not guilty, self-defense case. I mean, that was definitely one that was considered. I actually just don't think it got the national attention that some of these cases did, so it didn't have as wide-ranging of an impact as some of these. Ronnie O'Neal, another one, a perfect example of a case that could have gotten national exposure, didn't. The double homicide, of course, was Ronnie O'Neal. Absolutely just terrible story. Another individual choosing to represent himself. But let's go to the comment section. Let's look, and it's this. Everyone's people guessing. You have guessed.
There's a reason it's #1, right?
Yeah, there is a reason it is #1. So without further ado, let's reveal Peter Tragos, the lawyer know's #1 court case of 2022, and it is Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Peter, why?
So we've seen, I saw some of the negative comments on your Twitter before saying a hissy fit between celebrities. People were like, I can't believe people cared about this case, et cetera, et cetera. Why is it #1 on your list? Why would a lawyer pick this? This is bad form. I understand that, and that's fine, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, and that's perfectly fine. But that's why you asked me about the criteria for the list.
Yep.
And the significance and the impact and the interest has never been matched since, in a case I can remember. People said O.J. Simpson, but this to me, still now, after we've had Darrell Brooks, Reeves, whatever the cases are that have happened, none of them came close to Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. And still, people are interested in the appellate process. They want to look at appellate briefs. There's nothing more boring than reading an appellate brief, and people just can't get enough because they're learning so much about the legal process. This, to me, has changed the way we look at defamation. Defamation is such a difficult case to win, and Johnny Depp went and he won. This was something that I think the Me Too movement was great and helped a lot of people get a voice that never had it and never had an opportunity to have it before. But there were also people that got wrongfully caught up in that net and in that web, and we saw about that. We saw about how men can be victims of domestic violence too. We saw about how famous people's lives can be affected by negative accusations and people being held accountable to negative accusations if, in fact, the jury finds that they believe that person lied. We got to watch them testify with our own eyes and determine and be the jury through the camera on who do you believe? Who do you think is telling the truth? And there were people on every political side, from every background, from every community. My polls, and I know yours because I came on your show, were 98, 99% in agreement with the jury that they believed Johnny Depp and not Amber Heard. And as a community, that was significant. And to me, a lot was learned with this case about what the court system is like. It was a civil case, getting justice for a victim. I'm drawn to that because that's what I do in my everyday life. I fight for victims for justice against defendants. So I was personally drawn to it for that reason as well. And just people were so impacted by it and had so many questions. There was so much great conversation centered around it that's why I really think this was I don't think there's an argument as to what was the most impactful and significant case of the year. I don't think it's close. If I was going to weigh them, this would be more impactful than the other 4 put together. That's what I would say. That's how heavy of a favorite this was for number 1, in my opinion. And all of the people in my community and my life, nobody texted me about, or there was no case people texted me about more than this case.
If you look at the ingredients that make a captivating trial, what are the ingredients? Let's go through them. Big names.
Oh, yeah.
Significant evidence.
Yep.
Bombshell testimony. And the big thing that we forget is, I think we take it for granted these days, is courtroom access. Not every judge and not every court jurisdiction is going to allow cameras in and allow a live feed out. It's still a very modern thing that court cases can be streamed in their entirety to people, I mean, really directly into the palm of their hand. So this case, it had it all, especially when you're talking about A-list celebrities and Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. You're talking about there being the controversy, the social impact when you factor in the Me Too movement from years past. And there was just so much to it.
But there's not just social impact in this case.
Right.
There
There's
was
also,
legitimate,
that's why I'm glad. Yeah.
Absolutely. Legal precedent basically being set by this case. We're seeing more defamation lawsuits filed by celebrities. We are seeing judges like Hunter Carroll cite Adam Waldman, Johnny Depp's words being taken as his client's words, as his agent. When we're dealing with the Petito Laundrie case, it's already being set there. We're seeing these lawyers become superstars, and that's something, that makes for a good court case, is these either high-powered or well-versed lawyers that we had in this case as well. We also had an unknown result, right? That's why people love sports. We never know who's going to win. Yeah. And a lot, like throughout the Darrell Brooks case, there was not a lot of, to me, I knew who was going to win. But some of these cases have had that, and this one was a big one. We didn't know which way it was going to go. The audience felt that it was pretty strongly tipped in Johnny Depp's favor, but at the end of the day, Johnny Depp actually lost one count as well. So he won on all 3 of his defamation counts. Amber Heard won on one of her defamation counts with some of the words of Adam Waldman. So I think all of that has made such a big deal. And then when you talk about cameras in the courtroom, not only do some judges not allow it, some judges who do allow it end up disallowing it later, and they're citing this case about zooming in on the parties,
That's right.
about zooming in on certain features and picking apart what people are wearing and how their hair is being done and how that's inappropriate, doesn't add anything to the case, and actually could poison a potential jury pool.
So the 3 other officers in the George Floyd murder, I looked for video and I couldn't find video, and that's when I found the courtroom sketches, because that's how courtroom sketch artists have their jobs, because not every court case is going to allow video in. This one, being able to see Johnny Depp sit on one side of the courtroom and to see Amber Heard sit on the other, and to have people micro-analyze their facial twitches and expressions, moments, the slightest eyebrow raise in that case would send Twitter into a frenzy. I've never seen anything quite like it. When you compare it to some of the biggest court cases, the most mainstream, we'll call them, court cases of all time, O.J. Simpson is undoubtedly up there. Casey Anthony is without question up there as well. And this one has to join it, right? I mean, if
Absolutely.
I'll give this is my favorite part of my job, is I get to ask our audience, if you were putting it on the Mount Rushmore of mainstream court cases where the entire country, really the world, was just magnetized towards it and glued to it and could not miss a moment. We have people in our newsroom at WFLA that could not miss a moment of that trial. Other trials that have that impact on people, what come to mind? I'll ask our audience here now that we have finished out the list. OJ, Casey Anthony, this one, any others that
Trayvon Martin, I think, was pretty big when that one was happening. I'm sure we're missing some pretty big ones. But what's interesting about those 3 officers, their trials were federal. R. Kelly's federal.
Yep, that's right.
No cameras in the federal courtroom. That's never changing, in my opinion.
Yep.
But what's interesting is there more negative or positive ramifications for having cameras and microphones in the courtroom.
Well, I'm a journalist and I'm a reporter, so I'm always I'm not going to be biased. I'm going to always advocate for camera. I'm big on transparency. Give me courtroom access. I want to know what's going on. I don't want anything hidden from the public. We want to be able to show people what is going on and show how our legal system works.
I agree.
A big part of transparency.
That's huge.
I will very, very blatantly and very, very clearly establish that I am for courtroom access when it comes to these cases. But I do understand why, look, there's sometimes when you get into extremely sensitive topics where it's just not the appropriate avenue. And I do understand that, but I'm always for transparency to see how our legal system works.
I wonder if there's a way to regulate it more in what happens in the public, because I do have a little bit of that ringing in my head. This is why we can't have nice things, because of what people did with that courtroom access on TikTok, making fun of victims or making fun of witnesses or whatever it may be, making fun of lawyers or judges. And that's inappropriate, and we shouldn't do that. And as a society, that's a problem that we just kind of have generally. But I am for it. The number one reason I'm for it is for what you said, so people can understand what it's like. So they're not scared if they ever should find themselves in a courtroom. It should not be a place where, you don't want to walk in regardless of what your rights are, and you just let your rights get trampled on because you're too afraid of entering into the legal system. Now, you shouldn't enter it for no reason or flippantly. You should have a good reason and only do it when absolutely necessary, but it shouldn't be something that you're so afraid of, like going to the dentist or getting a shot or something like that. Sometimes you need to be in the legal system, and if you do, you shouldn't be afraid of the process. And I think if people saw it more and we pulled back the curtain a little bit, I think that's how they would get more comfortable with the process.
Not so scary.
Right.
I mean, it can feel intimidating to people who aren't in a courtroom very often.
Oh, absolutely.
But
that's why you have a lawyer. And you see the cases, the people that don't have lawyers, how it doesn't really go well for them most of the time. So that's why you need a lawyer to help you with it. We saw that multiple times just this year.
A lawyer,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go. Now you do at least.
Folks, we're going to be, let's review one more time our top 5 list now that we have finished Peter's list. Peter, thank you for putting this together for us. Again, this is the top 5 court cases of 2022 as put together by our friend here at WFLA Now, Peter Tragos, personal injury attorney here in the Tampa Bay area, also known as the lawyer you know. Here's how this is going to work, folks. For those of you joining us on Facebook Live, we're about to hop over to YouTube Live because Peter is going to break down the biggest court cases of 2023. We're going to look at, we've just looked back. Now it's time to look ahead. We want to know from Peter, what are some of the court cases that he's going to be monitoring as far as 2023? I think we know one that's definitely going to be on that list. If you want to join us for the rest of this conversation, it'll be on WFLA's YouTube page. So YouTube Live audience, we're not going anywhere. Facebook Live audience, we're taking a break here, and you can come join us on YouTube Live. And again, as a reminder, you can vote now for your top court case of 2022 right now on WFLA.com. Just click on the link in the description on this video. Back in 30 seconds.
Live on WFLA Now, this is Hey JB. Here's JB Biunno.
Our look back of the biggest court cases of 2022 are complete, with Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard leading the charge. However, there were some other massive court cases, but now it is time to look ahead to 2023. What are the biggest court cases of the upcoming year? Good that we have hanging around with us, the lawyer you know, Peter Tragos, joining us here live in the WFLA Now Stream Center. Peter, we just wrapped up our live stream on 2022. Now we look ahead to 2023. But before we do, and we are going to hear from you here in just a second, I want to go over the results of our poll. And we asked you on WFLA.com what were the biggest court cases of 2022. And Peter was in lockstep with our audience as to number one.
I'm interested to hear this.
Yeah, so finishing number one was Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard with 48% of the vote. Darrell Brooks coming in at second with 22% of the vote. Gabby Petito's parents versus Brian Laundrie's parents, that looming legal showdown, that finished three. We have the Parkland school shooter finishing at 4, and then the George Floyd officers finishing tied for 5th. So you and our audience are almost exactly the same, minus the Petito case and the Parkland case getting flipped.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, very. I'm curious. What surprises you?
I'm most surprised that Darrell Brooks was number 2.
Really?
Yeah. For everyone, I don't know. You know, I would have thought Petito would be number 2. It's got the influencer aspect to it, and I know you covered it just extensively and are going to continue to. And people come here for that, literally. So I thought that would be number 2 if I was going to guess, and then maybe Brooks 3, Parkland 4.
I think people understood the assignment, and the assignment was the top court case, not the top headline.
Yeah.
Massive difference between the top headline of the year versus the, of course, the top court case. So people were very, very well aware of Darrell Brooks and how that trial was just an absolute zoo.
Oh, yeah.
And we still have votes coming in. You can continue to vote on WFLA.com by clicking on the link in the description on this video, also in the pinned comment. But it is now time to look ahead to the biggest court cases of 2023. I'd like to also remind our audience that while we do this, we are going to be paying attention to your comments in the Facebook Live, or excuse me, now YouTube Live comment section. We've ended our Facebook Live. So just YouTube Live, we are going to be paying attention to the comments that are coming in. And we want to hear from you as to what you think should be the priority as to the biggest court cases of 2023. So again, being joined here by Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know. WFLA Now's JB Biunno here with you on the left side of your screen as we look ahead now to the biggest court cases of 2023. I don't know this list. We did not talk about this beforehand. So, Peter, this is on you. What is your list? What are you really targeting as far as providing legal analysis for your followers online when it comes to the upcoming year?
So we have some pretty difficult murder cases that had issues with the investigation and trying to find who done it type of deal. When we're talking about the Delphi murders and now these Idaho murders. So I'm hoping that they make some headway in the investigation of the Idaho murders and we start hearing more about that in 2023. And then that the Delphi case does culminate with that trial in 2023, but we'll kind of see if that gets there. And then we have a couple cases I'm not so sure will get to trial in 2023. I know you're going to hate to hear this, but Petito and Laundrie is on that list because it's a civil case, because there are so many issues. They're going to fight discovery issue after discovery issue. There is a chance, and I also know how clogged the court system is here.
You have direct knowledge of that because you're an attorney here.
Exactly, and we have cases in Sarasota County, so we know exactly what's going on there, and everything seems to get delayed. So I wouldn't really expect that trial to go this year as well. And then you have the FTX scandal with that fraud case. It's going to be huge. People are going to be talking about it in 2023. I don't think it's going to culminate in 2023. But there are a few I feel confident are going to culminate in 2023 that are huge and could have some huge ramifications. The first one, which we've already kind of referenced here in cameras in the courtroom, and that is the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell, what are they calling it? The cult murder cases, where the web that these two are caught in, and there are 2 cases specifically we're going to talk about right now that when I say, you can't write it, they've literally done documentaries, Netflix shows, docuseries on these 2 cases. And the first one that we're talking about is the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell, where there is just literally a trail of bodies behind these people. These significant others prior to the relationship of them getting together, the ex-husband, the ex-wife, both died under certain circumstances that people think could be murder. Brothers of these people and acquaintances of these people have died. And then the final straw was Lori's children disappeared and they were found on Chad Daybell, her new husband's property. He's also a leader in a subsection of a church that is a cult. and she was a part of it, and there are podcasts on it, and they disappear to Hawaii on their honeymoon and tell everybody their kids are okay. They find out the kids are actually in the backyard. It ends up coming down with charges for them, and they're going forward towards trial. There's been a ton of coverage, a ton of cameras, a ton of media, a ton of microphones in the courtrooms at all these hearings, and the judge has just recently said, cameras are out. Microphones are in. We'll get you the transcript. Cameras are out. We will not watch this trial. And so that's kind of a bummer, but we are still going to follow it as much as we can because it is an extremely interesting case to me, that Vallow Daybell case.
Yeah, and we have Deborah mentioned right on top of it. I mean, this comment came in even before you were talking about it, even though no cameras, and we were talking about courtroom transparency. And look, I want to see that trial. So many of us do. But as to whether or not, what kind of access we're going to get, a lot of it's going to come down to, scrambling for information, right after, I can personally attest to the scramble that occurs in courtrooms when attorneys come out, and it's kind of like in the movies. They kind of get it right in the movies, but sometimes they get it wrong too. When there's that big scramble with reporters, throwing microphones in the face of attorneys and people outside the courthouse. It's a little bit dramatized, but that is somewhat of an idea as to what it might be with limited access to that case. Any others? So I'm going to shout out a couple that I'm monitoring too, Peter. What are some others that are on your radar?
So
and we'll pay attention to hashtag HeyJB, hashtag lawyer in the comment section too.
Then the next big one that again they're literally making shows and docuseries about is the Alec Murdaugh case over in South Carolina. Prominent attorney, a long line of attorneys in his family, so much so that the courtroom he's being tried in for his criminal case, his grandfather's portrait hangs in the back of it. These are the biggest of big shots attorneys in this town. And his story is so convoluted that there are, I think, 70 plus charges against him: stealing money from clients, money laundering, bank fraud, wire fraud, stealing money from his law firm and his partners. His son had a BUI, a boat crash where somebody died, and he's paying off those people or trying to intimidate witnesses from that case. His housekeeper slipped and fell and died at his house. He gets with her family to hire his buddy as a lawyer to sue himself and his insurance policy, and then he's allegedly stole the proceeds of that settlement by creating a fake bank account where they deposited that money. Then he's got this drug problem as well, and so he hires his drug dealer to fake a murder on himself to get insurance money for his son. So we have insurance fraud, and come to find out, he didn't even need to do that because there was a clause that the suicide clause was gone after a year or something, but regardless. So that's another part of the story. Then his wife and his son are found dead on his hunting property, and now he's being accused and tried for those murders. And his lawyers have demanded a speedy trial, so we are going to get this trial early in 2023. So this one is one I am very confident is going to culminate in 2023. And this is just one part of a huge string of corruption for Alec Murdaugh. And the prosecutors in that case are trying to get into that string as motive, that he murdered his family to cover up his financial crimes. And we'll see if the judge allows it, but it is going to be a wild one. You literally can't make this stuff up. There's so much going on with these people.
We've been on your screen. We've been showing some of the comments, a lot of comments coming in, people asking a whole lot of questions. We won't be able to get to them all. Another one that people are just now punching in quite a bit. B wants to know from both of us, or the Orlando freefall case, that of course being the teenager who fell from the Orlando freefall ride right here in Central Florida. Of course, lawsuits being launched in that case, and we will of course stay on top of that one. I'm gonna shout out mine here in just a second, but a couple of others that I want to make sure that we did not miss. Yeah, the Daybell case being shouted out here by Jenny. There was another one. Oh, the case of the Crumbly parents. Big one.
Big legal ramifications too.
Michelle Battersby. That one being, of course, that was the Ethan being the high school mass shooter at Oxford High School in Michigan, and how the parents are now being prosecuted in that case. That one's going to be absolutely massive.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I don't have any calendar type details on that as to when we could see that, but of course, I'm sure it's just a Google search away. Another one. Well, I'll just shout out mine unless you have any others. Some that I'm paying attention to. Look, without mentioning any names of any suspects, I'm looking for justice for Cassie Carley. That's a case that was the Florida mother who went missing during the custody exchange on the Panhandle. The ex-boyfriend in that case has been arrested on abuse or indicted on abuse of a corpse. Paying attention to that one. Justice for Little Harmony Montgomery. That's a case that we're paying attention to. And really the big one, of course, right now that we hope yields an arrest and we hope yields justice in 2023. The Idaho student murders, which is a big one. I know that you just started doing streams about that on your channel as well. We were talking about that a short time ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hope they make some headway on that case for sure, because that's sad all the way around. I saw some people mention Sarah Boone, which is another wild case, zipping her boyfriend in a suitcase and leaving him there overnight. Courtney Clenny, the OnlyFans model, a self-defense claim where the law enforcement basically believed her, let her leave, and then later on brought her back. Now she's arrested, moving forward that way. There are so many, and we never know which ones are actually going to hit and show us what the evidence is, but besides just what people are reporting, so sometimes that's really important to say, this is what they're saying, but we don't necessarily know it's the truth until we get either a resolution or we get a trial to see what comes before us. And I think the free fall ride in Orlando, that one I don't expect to get a lot of details on. I expect that one to settle. That's what I expect to happen in that case. So I don't know if we'll really get a lot of details on it. If we do, I think it'd be incredibly interesting.
The one we have on our screen here from Yari, what's the status of the Jussie Smollett case? Did he ever serve time, or is he on holding? I'm trying to remember. I don't believe that he is serving hard time. But that was another court case we didn't really get to with our top 5 list, but one that also when we're talking about ingredients for a big court case, big name, courtroom access, twists and turns, and significant testimony and evidence. I mean, that was another big one.
Unbelievable facts. I mean, when you have these cases that it seems like this can't be real.
Yeah. And I'm looking here. Sentenced to 5 months in jail after being convicted. Yeah, I was just having to review some of my notes, and really just a Google search away. Sentenced to 150 days in jail for of course lying that on the attack, lying to police. So that's another big one. We'll another couple of comments here before we have to wrap up our live stream here, folks. The story, the Quentin Simon story in Savannah, Georgia. That's an interesting one. Yeah, Jenny bringing up, let's not forget about sweet baby Quentin Simon. I'm not sure when that one actually heads to trial, but that's a big one in Savannah. I have friends in Savannah. That's something that we're going to be paying attention to as well. Yeah, folks, look, we're going to be paying attention to it here on WFLA Now, and I'd like to just take an opportunity to spotlight Peter's channel. Not that he needs any more spotlight, because he has seen, of course, his follower count just skyrocket over the last 12 months. Peter, thank you for joining us here today. An opportunity for you to just shout out how people can follow you and become part of the LYK community, and also to a chance to just kind of talk about what people can expect when they follow your channel.
Sure, yeah. The channel on YouTube is called The Lawyer You Know, which is what the hashtag is, and then on all of our social media, it's at Tragos Law. My last name, LAW. What's been cool about the process is people that don't know a lawyer, that need a lawyer, especially in Florida, sometimes around the United States, and we can connect them with people with their injury cases, wrongful death cases, catastrophic injury cases, car accidents, whatever it may be. We've been able to help so many people. As JB said, I'm a lawyer first, and then I don't even know what he called a streamer second.
Right.
Whatever it is that we do on YouTube. But honestly, it's a learning experience for me as well. I tried a couple of cases since doing YouTube, and I always think it helps me in picking a jury, because I understand what people think, what they like, what they don't like. We talk about experts on our channel. I ask a lot of questions of the audience. What do you think about this expert? What do you think about this presentation during opening statements? What do you think about this witness? What do you think about how this criminal defendant did or didn't testify? Whatever it may be, because sometimes in jury selection, the potential jurors aren't always honest because they think we want a certain answer, and that's what they try to give us. But on YouTube, people are brutally honest, and I can learn a lot as a lawyer as well. So there's learning going on both sides of our stream. So we'd love to have anybody over there that enjoys these types of conversations, enjoys and is interested in this content. No matter how brutal the facts can be, sometimes we all learn a lot from the process. And while it can be a special kind of person that likes this kind of content, I always say that, it happens in the real world, and it's something we got to deal with whether we want to or not. So we might as well learn the best way to deal with it.
Well, it's been fun. It's been
awesome.
fun. And I'm not even just talking about this stream. I'm talking about just getting to know you and getting to know a little bit more about the work that you do and your family too. I know Papa Tragos, I don't know if he's watching, but saying hello to Dad. I know that for you, family is a big part of what you do.
Huge.
And I just appreciate you taking time out of your day and coming in. It's so easy, of course, to join virtually these days. Everyone knows how to work Zoom. Everyone knows how to get on a Skype call or FaceTime. But Peter taking time out of his day to come to WFLA and help us break this pattern of everyone just, I'll just join via Zoom. It's easier that way, right? Well, no. Well, Peter, I'm lucky enough that you could have been anywhere. You could have been in California. I could have been in California or New York or the other side of the world. But we're here together in a great part of the country. And being able to bring you in today, it was really a treat. So
it was cool. It was really fun. I'd love to do it again sometime.
Yeah. I have a funny feeling that perhaps I'm going to bug Peter to get him back in the Stream Center for maybe that big court case that we're talking about, the court case that is looming for next year. So that's going to do it for our live stream here, folks. Be sure to follow The Lawyer You Know across just about every platform, right? You're everywhere.
Everywhere you can find us. If you don't find us somewhere, let me know.
Yeah, really appreciate Peter joining us and appreciate you wherever you are watching from. You'll see Peter tonight on WFLA News Channel 8. We're about to do a little bit for our 4 o'clock newscast on your NBC station, 8 on your side, right here in Tampa Bay, Florida. And, of course, everybody out there, wherever you're watching from, if it gets a little cold in the weeks ahead, Christmas is arriving. Stay warm out there. Happy holidays from Peter, myself, the entire WFLA family, and we appreciate you joining us here live on stream. For Peter, I'm JB. You can always go to WFLA.com, the WFLA app, for all of our content, Florida's biggest headlines, breaking news alerts, top stories, and, of course, the story that you can vote on right now, your top court case of 2022. Till next time, I'm JB. Thanks for joining us here on WFLA Now.